Today we have Dr. Omar Khalidi, author of famous books Khaki and Ethnic Violence and Muslims in Indian Economy. Dr. Omar Khalidi, the recent judgment on Babri Masjid title suit delivered by Lucknow bench of the Allahabad High Court, it relied heavily on Archeological Survey of India excavation report. What is your opinion about that report?
I think that report by ASI is deeply flawed because it talks about a massive Hindu structure on the site of the mosque. But I think the default with this report is that not every pre-Islamic structure is necessarily Hindu, because there are many different religious structures within the broad category called Indian religions. So it could have been a Buddhist temple, it could have been a Jain structure, and of other deities, so not necessarily a Hindu temple. I think that itself is an erroneous category. To identify every pre-Islamic building as Hindu is highly questionable and false.
And but why would ASI do that? I mean, they go by evidence and archaeological, I hope, practices.
No, I think the Indian archaeology is highly influenced by the prevailing ideologies, and in particular the ideology of Hindutva. So what they are basing their report is a archaeology in the service of ideology of Hindutva, so that the way Indian monuments are interpreted are in very Orientalist fashion that seem to divide India into neat categories of ancient India, regardless of what religious or cultural entity that was in power at the time. Secondly, Muslim. Third, British. So that these neat categories are fallacious, and the ASI is still under that influence.
So can you give us some examples of what you're claiming?
Right. So for instance, the Purana Qila in Delhi it has been identified as the site of a Indo-Gangetic civilization, which is not borne out by any of the scientific archaeological principles. Just because the Mohenjo-daro civilization was quote-unquote lost to India because Sindh became part of Pakistan. The Indian archaeologists led by B.B. Lal and others, who were students of Mortimer Wheeler, the last British Archeological Survey of India chief, decided to search for an alternate site of archaeology that would make that archaeological site as the first signs of Indian civilization, that is interpreted as Hindu civilization. So therefore, I think the flaw begins right after independence to give an ideological tinge to the work of ASI.
And so you're saying that ASI still continue to do that work, meaning undermining Islamic heritage of India or Muslim heritage of India.
In addition to not only undermining necessarily the Islamic heritage of India, but also presenting a homogeneous view of Indian civilizations, as if before the arrival of the Muslim rulers or Muslim chiefs, there were one single Indian civilization. There were many regional and civilizations based on their particular geography and culture and climate. That is being effaced to present a homogeneous view of Indian archaeology. And in later developments, the ASI has tried to efface Islamic monuments of India through numerous examples, and I can give you a few if
Yes,
you
please.
are interested.
Yes.
So, for instance, right after 1948 Operation Polo against Hyderabad, the Jama Masjid in Daulatabad, in what is now Maharashtra, has been converted into a Bharat Mata mandir. The very name itself is so crassly and candidly contemporary that it makes a mockery of any kind of ancient temple, but it has been named as Bharat Mata Mandir. In Sasaram, in Bihar, for instance, the magnificent mausoleum of Sher Shah Suri is being encroached through the insertion of 3 temples today, so that the magnificent monument is being overshadowed by the new temples. And that is against the law, because no modern structure can come into an ISI protected place of heritage. 2 examples. Now, the third example is where in Hyderabad, in the Charminar, there is a modern temple protruding out of a ancient monument protected by the ASI, and in 1970, on the southeast corner of Charminar, a small stone that was kumkum sprinkled began as a Bhagya Lakshmi temple, and today it's a massive temple. So, and then all the major gates and monuments of Golconda and Qutub Shahi Hyderabad are riddled with temples and icons, symbols, and figures of Hindu religious significance.
All these are under jurisdiction of ASI.
They indeed are under the jurisdiction of the ASI.
And how do you see it as opposed to that? There are some mosques that are under jurisdiction of ASI, but Muslims are not able to, they're prevented to pray there.
Yeah, that is a completely separate category. There are, I think, about 118 mosques all over India that are under the protection, quote-unquote protection of ASI, in which prayers are either barred or permitted only on certain occasions, and that too, I think, on individual basis, not collective Bajamaat namaz, for instance. So that is a separate category, and to be fair, this came much before independence. But the ASI continues that. And the problem is that the most recent judgment of Babri Masjid is fraught with huge consequences on this particular angle, because unlike the 1991 Act, Protection of Places of Religious Act 1991, that protects places of religious worship that were in active use as places of worship in 1991, the mosques under the control of ASI are exempt from that. So not only that the Babri Masjid was exempt from this 1991 Act, but it is also true that those places of worship that were not active places of worship in 1991, such as the 118 mosques that I just mentioned, are also up for grabs. In other words, the Allahabad judgment, the judgment of the Lucknow court opens up claims on these 118 mosques, which are theoretically under the protection of ASI.